Ever feel like, gosh, wouldn't the world be a better place if everyone just sort of, I don't know, followed some basic sense of what's right and wrong?
It's a timeless longing, isn't it? And it's actually at the heart of what C.S. Lewis explores in his book, Mere Christianity, which, by the way, we're diving into today.
Hey, you know what always gets me about this book is like the setting where it all started. It's World War II, right? England, air raid sirens, the whole bit. And Lewis is using radio to talk about faith in the middle of all that chaos.
It's incredible, isn't it? Imagine huddling in a bomb shelter, the world literally falling apart around you, and you've got C.S. Lewis on the radio, this former atheist, talking about the meaning of life.
It's heavy stuff, but he had a way of making it, I don't know, relatable. Like he wasn't some stuffy theologian. He called himself an amateur, which honestly is kind of endearing.
It speaks to his whole approach, really. He wanted to cut through all the dogma and intellectual clutter and just get to the core of what he saw as this shared experience of faith, hence mere Christianity.
And he starts with this idea that we all have this like built-in sense of right and wrong. He calls it the moral law. It's not about like following rules someone made up, but something deeper, something, dare I say, universal.
Exactly. He uses this brilliant example. Imagine someone barging onto a crowded train and just taking your seat. How would you feel?
Oh man, I'd be fuming. That feeling of being wronged, like instinctively. That's exactly what he's talking about.
And Lewis would say that reaction, that immediate sense of injustice, it's not just you being difficult, it's evidence of this deeper moral code that's hardwired into us.
So like we're not just making this stuff up as we go along. It's more like we're tapping into something bigger than ourselves.
Precisely. He argues that this innate sense of right and wrong can't be explained away by, I don't know, social conditioning or just like our animal instincts. It points to something beyond, a higher intelligence, a mind that's the author of this universal moral code.
Okay, so we've got this moral compass, and it's pointing to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
This is where, for me, things get really interesting. Because he doesn't shy away from the tough questions, like if there's this all-good, powerful being, why is there so much messed up stuff happening in the world?
The age-old problem of evil. It's a question that's haunted humanity since, well, forever. And Lewis doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but he does dismantle some common misconceptions.
Like what?
Well, one of the things he tackles is this idea of dualism, this belief that there are these two equal forces in the universe, good and evil, locked in this epic battle.
Which, to be fair, sometimes feels pretty accurate when you look around.
Oh, absolutely. But Lewis makes this really interesting point. If good and evil were truly equal, good wouldn't stand a chance. It'd be this cosmic stalemate, a universe in perpetual chaos.
Okay, so if dualism isn't the answer, what is?
Yeah.
How do we square the idea of a loving God with, well, everything else?
Well, that's where Lewis introduces a concept that's central to Christian thought, free will. And we're going to...
Picking up that thread of free will, it's not some abstract philosophical concept for Lewis. It's at the core of what it means to be human.
Okay, so free will. Where does Lewis take us with that? He argues that it's a gift, a pretty awesome one, really. But like most good things, it comes with responsibility. And that responsibility, well, it means we can choose the wrong things, things that hurt ourselves and others.
But then doesn't that mean God is okay with us messing up? Like, if he's all-powerful, couldn't he just make us choose the right things all the time?
See, that's where things get really interesting, because Lewis says that true love, true growth, requires freedom, even if that means things might go sideways sometimes. It's like a parent letting their kid ride a bike for the first time.
Yeah, they might fall and scrape their knees.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean the parent wants them to get hurt. It's because they value their child's freedom to learn and grow, even if it comes with a few bumps and bruises along the way.
So God is kind of like that parent, letting us wobble around a bit, even though he knows we might crash and burn.
In a way, yes. He values our freedom to choose him, to choose love, even if it means we might also choose poorly at times.
Okay, I see where he's going with this. But then what about all the stuff we just talked about, like forgiveness and hope and all that? How does that fit into this whole free will thing?
That's where mere Christianity goes from being just interesting ideas to, like, real-life application. Because Lewis is saying that if we have this freedom, then we also have this amazing capacity for change, for growth, for, well, becoming better versions of ourselves.
And that's where all these virtues come in, right? Like forgiveness, for example.
Yeah.
It's something that's always gotten to me.
It's tough stuff, isn't it? Holding on to anger, resentment, it's easy. Forgiving someone who's hurt you, that takes real strength.
It feels like you're letting them off the hook somehow.
Right. But Lewis would say that forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself from the bitterness that can eat away at you from the inside.
It's like you're choosing to break the cycle of pain, right? But how do you actually do that? It's easier said than done.
He doesn't sugarcoat it. He actually says it's a kind of death, a death of the ego, of that part of you that wants to hold on to the anger or the hurt.
So forgiveness is like this radical act of letting go.
Exactly. And that's where hope comes in. Because forgiveness is about moving forward. It's about believing that things can be different, better. And that takes a certain kind of hope.
Not just wishful thinking, but like a deep down belief that change is possible.
Right. And that's the kind of hope that Lewis is talking about. It's not passive, it's active. It's a driving force that propels you towards something better, something more.
It's like that saying, hope springs eternal. But Lewis is giving it some real teeth. It's not just some fluffy sentiment. It's like a muscle you have to exercise.
Exactly. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more you use it. And the more you exercise hope, the more you start to see those glimpses of something beyond the messiness of everyday life.
So we're not just cogs in a machine, doomed to repeat the same patterns over and over.
Not at all. For Lewis, that's what sets Christianity apart. It's this belief that change is possible, not just for us as individuals, but for the world. It's this wild, audacious hope that things can be redeemed, renewed, made whole again. And, that kind of hope is contagious.
Contagious in a good way, I'm assuming.
The best way. Because when you start to live from that place of hope, it spills over into everything. It changes how you see yourself, how you treat others, how you move through the world. And that's where things start to get really exciting.
Exciting how? What happens next? The whole idea of becoming new men.
Yeah.
It's like Lewis is taking us beyond just, self-improvement or something. It's way bigger than that.
It really is. He actually compares it to, get this, evolution. But not evolution as in just random chance and all that.
Yeah, because that's kind of depressing if you think about it.
Exactly. Lewis is saying there's a purpose behind it all, like something or someone is directing the show.
So it's more like evolution with a goal in mind.
Exactly. And that goal, for Lewis, is something he calls the new man, this transformed human being who is like the next step in creation. And he uses this example, I love this one, of those early armored creatures.
Oh, yeah. I remember that part. Go on.
So picture this, right? You're watching evolution unfold, and you see all these creatures developing tougher and tougher armor. You think, okay, that's the winning formula, right? Get bigger, badder armor. But then, out of nowhere, boom.
Plot twist.
Totally plot twist. These smaller, more vulnerable creatures show up, and guess what they've got?
Bigger brains.
Bingo! And suddenly the game changes completely. It's like evolution got outmaneuvered by its own creation.
It's like those little creatures were playing chess while the big guys were still playing checkers.
Exactly. And that's kind of how Lewis sees Christianity. It's not just a continuation of what came before. It's a whole new dimension, a radical departure.
So it's not just about being a better version of our old selves. It's about becoming something completely new.
Right. It's like we're being invited to step onto a different playing field altogether.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But what does this new man, this upgraded human, actually look like?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's hard to describe because it's so outside our normal experience. But Lewis does give us some hints. He says, it's not just about doing good things. It's about being good deep down in your very core.
So it's got to be more than just checking things off a to-do list.
Exactly. It's about a change of heart, a fundamental shift in how we see ourselves in the world. And he uses this really interesting phrase. He calls it a good infection.
A good infection. Okay, that's definitely not something you hear every day.
Right. But think about it. An infection, it spreads, it changes things from the inside out. And that's what Lewis is getting at. This transformation, it's not something we can force or control. It's something we receive.
Receive how?
Through faith, through opening ourselves up to something beyond ourselves.
So it's not about trying harder, being better. It's about surrendering.
In a way, yes. Surrendering to this bigger story, this bigger reality that's unfolding all around us.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But if we're being honest, most of us aren't exactly lining up to surrender. We like being in control,
Of course. But here's the thing, and this is where I think Lewis is really onto something. That need for control, that fear of letting go, it comes from a place of thinking we have to have it all figured out.
And Lewis is saying we don't.
He's saying we can't. We're human, we mess up, we're a mixed bag of good intentions and, well, not so good choices. But that's okay, because grace steps in.
Grace. Like forgiveness.
It's bigger than that, even. Grace is this radical idea that we're loved not because of what we do or don't do, but simply because, well, because we are. It's a gift, pure and simple, and it's that grace that makes this whole new man thing even possible.
It's like we get a clean slate.
A clean slate, a fresh start, a chance to actually become the best versions of ourselves, not because we earned it, but because we're part of something much, much bigger.
So it's not about striving to be better, but about realizing we're already loved, flaws and all.
Exactly. And when we really grasp that, when we let that truth sink in, that's when the real transformation begins, not just for us as individuals, but for the world around us.
So Lewis is ultimately offering a message of hope.
Absolutely. A hope that's grounded not in wishful thinking, but in this unshakable belief that we're not alone. That we're part of something good, something beautiful, something that's been in motion since the beginning of time. And that, I think, is a deep dive worth taking.
It sure is. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Mere Christianity. It's a book that challenges, inspires, and ultimately, I think, offers a glimpse of something truly extraordinary.